You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 27 of Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong. I'm Jessica Salaji here with Matt Lowe. We have a lot of interesting and exciting news for you this week, as well as some interesting and exciting announcements. The first being that a noticeable voice is absent. The one, Jonathan Giles. Matt, do you want to tell us a little bit about why Jonathan is no longer with us on the audio?
He has decided to take on the role of producer full-time of the show. So he won't be on here very much.
He'll occasionally stop in and still share his liberty-minded, anti-public land positions to back me up against Matt. And he does produce podcasts full-time with other entities, so this is just a good fit for him right now. So
I am going to miss him, though.
We will miss him, because he was the host, so...
Right. Yeah, we're filling it out now.
Yes.
What do we do?
We are a minute and 22 seconds in, and now we have no plans. So, now that we've knocked that out of the... We're really not ready. Episode 27, and we are not ready. So we're gonna give you guys a great show. So, a couple things going on around... Oh, before we get into the stories, we have a huge announcement on my end down here in South Georgia. I'm finally bringing you this podcast on fiber internet. I was able to give Frontier the boot, so that's exciting. So we're using new software and new production tools that I am now able to support with my rural internet. How exciting is that?
Fiber?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't even have fiber.
So they totally came out and brought a bulldozer and dug the lines and ran them from the box to my house, and then had some guy spend a Saturday morning hooking everything up. So it's a very big deal.
That's cool. I know I don't even know why this is relevant other than we're talking about fiber. When I was in the Army, I did communications, and one of the tools in our bag was a way to get fiber but how to get like old school analog devices like an Andy Griffith phone to work over a fiber network, because the U.S. Army had fiber, but some of our NATO allies, they may not.
So did you figure it out?
Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't me that personally figured it out. I mean, but that was one of the things that they trained us for, and I just thought it was funny that all of that stuff is in use.
Do you want to share with us who's raising hell in the background?
Man, my two dogs, I'm recording at the kitchen table, and for some reason, I don't know, there's a possum or a raccoon or whatever, and they feel the need to bark at everything that comes through the backyard. And I guess that's good for security purposes, but it's annoying when you're trying to do a podcast.
Sure.
They're inside now, so you're probably going to hear them drinking and eating food.
Well, because
they're big dogs.
The Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast is a family affair. So slurp away, Fred. All right. So going around the state and nation with a few hot topics stories that we've been kind of covering over the last several weeks and talking about is a new article that came out that said there's a 75% chance that Republicans will lose the House of Representatives to Democrats. So, with midterm elections coming up in November, it's generally common for the minority party to take back Congress. But I don't think it's ever been this volatile or divisive when it's happened.
I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and I don't know that one of the things that you hear everyone talking about is how vicious and venomous politics has become lately. And, from a historical perspective, I don't think it's that bad. I mean, if you think about it, we've had guys that beat each other with canes, shot each other on the floor, right? Didn't two guys had that? I mean, they had a duel.
So,
right?
I agree with you, and I don't really have a problem with the back and forth, because in my opinion, by and large, aside from guns, God, and gays, Republicans and Democrats are the same. I mean, so
right.
For this whole this drama about Democrats are going to take back the House while we have a Republican president. I mean, we went through this, and Republicans took back the House under Obama, and not much changed. And then there was just this stonewalling. And what have they accomplished? I mean, I understand that progress has been made in terms of like big, minor things from Obamacare implementation and regulatory things, but in the big scheme of things, life is not that different for Americans over the last 2 years.
Right, I agree. Maybe some issues, some small things with taxes and whatnot, but right. Yeah, I think that some people maybe are like generally a little happier, when they're looking at like their 401ks and their retirement accounts. They're a little more optimistic. I know me, like health insurance, man, that hadn't changed. It's still just as crappy as it was.
Right. Well, and then another aspect of it too is that Republicans have split in their own party and opposed Trump, while the Liberty Caucus or the Freedom Caucus have stood with him, and vice versa. So, I mean, there's already been dissent that has caused a divide on legislation within our own party and kind of slowed down the process of things. It's been Republicans that they're not worried are going to help make up the votes, and we have the majority. So I'm not expecting, like, if Democrats take the House, for us to just go up in smoke or see an absolute shutdown.
No, I don't think we will either. I think we'll hit a point of gridlock, and I'm a fan of gridlock. Like a huge fan of gridlock, just because it slows things down.
Sure.
Not that I think that this Congress, not that I think they've been passing things left and right and make huge changes. But if if the Democrats take control, then it'll slow things down it'll probably come to a screeching halt.
Right.
Or it'll test Trump and see how well he does.
It will force him
working with people across the line. Yeah.
We're kind of facing something similar in Georgia, where we could lose the governor's seat or the lieutenant governor's seat or one of the constitutional offices down the ticket. And Republicans, of course, just like they did in 2014, are all up in arms and panicked over what it would mean to not have a supermajority or a majority plus every office. And I vote in Republican primaries. I'm a libertarian, I guess. I don't know. I don't really have a title, but I still think it's dangerous to have every office. I want that voice of dissent. And, I'm going through and interviewing the candidates right now, and the Republicans won't sit down with all on Georgia, but the Democrats and libertarians are, other than Brian Kemp. And, there are Democrats who, in other offices that aren't as polarizing as the governor or lieutenant governor's office, who make a lot of practical sense and would be a better fit just to have that voice of dissension, or to use the office as, a platform, because, like when you're looking at agriculture or something, you're not talking about the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, taxes. It's an agency. So somebody with a different opinion isn't always the worst possible thing for government.
Right.
So I'm not in a panic over it, but
I wouldn't even panic if Abrams won. I mean, I think I would prefer that Kemp win, because there are some things coming up that, like I personally want to see done. And I think that it would take a Republican governor, a Republican House and Senate to get that done. But I don't know.
So
it's
I would go as far as to say that I wouldn't be. I mean, I'd be pretty upset with that candidate being our governor. But at the same time, the positive would be our our legislator would swing so far to the right, because they would
right.
be, proclaiming, oh, we sent this, just like Republicans in the House did at the federal level. We sent this legislation and she refused to sign it. And it'd be constant just trying to make her look as progressive and liberal as possible, while they're finally standing up for constitutional values. So, what kind of government do you want?
Right.
The one that passes things and they're mostly moderate, liberal, big government policies, or the one that doesn't pass anything, but at least they stand for the Constitution,
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think I've gotten to a point where, like, I look at each individual bill and almost look at it like, yeah, what's that going to do for me?
Right. Right. Well,
because we're so far past, what should be, what's in the confines of the scope of government and whatnot, that I'm just there, just whatever. What's in it for me?
Oh, we're living in a situation where government is always the solution. So, I mean, if you're going to be a part of the conversation, you got to figure out how you want that solution to look, not whether or not it's actually the solution. Because we're not winning the fight of this is not the role of government. It's not a winning argument anywhere right now.
Right. It's interesting that you say that we're living in an era where government is the solution. I've got some personal stuff going on, dealing with one of my children, and government is the solution. But at this point, government is the solution because originally government was the problem. And it amounts to. Do you mind getting into this?
No,
I was going to talk about my kid.
Yes, let's roll into it.
I've got a kid who has some mental health issues. He's been diagnosed with an attachment disorder, and over the last year, it's gotten progressively worse. We've got therapists that are in my home 4 days a week, sometimes 5. He's been in and out of some of the crisis centers, Peachford, River's Edge down in Macon, things like that, because of this attachment disorder. And I had a meeting with my adopted state rep this morning because there are 2 treatment facilities in the country that could handle my son. One is in Arkansas, one in Colorado. And because of the roadblocks that government put in place regarding insurance, if I send them across the state line, if I send my child across the state line, I'm in a position where I have to self-pay. And this the one facility that we've chosen is the guy is widely considered to be the nation's foremost expert on reactive attachment disorder and how to treat it. He has an 82% success rate. But because government put that state line roadblock in there, my insurance says no. So now I have to talk to my rep, who is going to go to the insurance commissioner and the governor on my behalf to advocate for an insurance waiver, which is now you're kind of in the place where the government set this roadblock, and now they're going to tell this private company, you have to go pay for it.
Right. So,
and
can you explain a little bit, I mean, other than self-pay, are there any other roadblocks for you? Or, I mean, how has government really been anyone who has insurance knows that everything is regulated heavily, but how did you end up having to go to your state rep?
Okay, so because of, and the government, it's actually interesting it's mostly the federal government that's the issue here. With Obamacare and the passing of that, my work does not offer a family plan. They offer an individual plan for me. And because I have so many kids and I don't make an obscene amount of money, because of the rules of Obamacare, my only option for insurance with my children is through Peach Care, which is one of the state's subsidized insurances. So that's where the federal government kind of, they pigeonholed me there with Obamacare, and that is. And I don't know when the state line stuff happened with that. The other thing that the federal government did was they started mandating a lot of stuff about mental health and how you had to integrate the patients into normal society, right? Like, say you have a group home, right, and it's all autistic people, and autism is a spectrum, and it runs a full spectrum, just like I guess the name says, and there's varying degrees of it and whatnot, but there's a couple of things that nearly all autistic people thrive in, right, and that's rigid schedules, things not changing a whole lot, knowing what's happening one day to next, that kind of thing. So you get a group home full of guys like that are all living together and they're thriving in this environment, right? Well, here comes the federal government and says, oh, well, as part of the treatment stuff, you got to start taking them out, right? So now they leave this home and they go stick them out in the shopping mall or wherever. And it things like that really, it starts messing with them. And I don't know that. That's just kind of one example of things where I think the federal government mandating some mental health treatments and ways that they do it is a bad thing. The other thing is they shut down, everybody, probably most of the people, especially down in your area, remember, you may not because you're only 30. There's always two, what?
Yeah, aren't you 40?
I am 40.
Yeah.
Which is why you may not remember the jokes, but there was always, jokes about when I was growing up, like when I was a kid, 10 years old, that if you went crazy, I made little finger quotes there. If you went crazy, you would end up in Milledgeville because there was a state hospital there. But they came through and closed down a bunch of those state hospitals.
Right.
So and then just mental health in general in Georgia has kind of moved to a community affair. And it's terrible. And man, every step of the way with my son, we've done residential facilities. He was he spent most of the summer, the last part of last school year, most of the summer, in a residential facility. And then like I said, he's been in and out of the crisis centers. And they almost every step of the way, the doctors, therapists, whoever we're working with, they're like, well, frankly, mental health in Georgia just sucks.
Right. So government created a problem. Government says it's the solution, but there really isn't a solution, and you need government to get anywhere with it.
Right.
And I don't, mental health is something that I think puts everyone in a position that they obviously, I have never spoken to anyone on any side of the aisle or any political ideology who is like, you know what, like, screw you. Go figure it out on your own. Everyone is sympathetic to the fact that as a society, like, we clearly don't know what we're doing, and very few people know what to do because, while I don't want people to just suffer and have to, cherry pick places all over the state or the country, I also don't want government so involved that they're making decisions about actual, like, mental health status. That's a slippery slope. And then the quality of care, because I was recently contacted by someone who has an adult son who's incarcerated, and he's been charged with a crime, and he's, his IQ is very low. He's been deemed incompetent. His parents are his guardian, and they sent him to a state-backed facility, and then the state facility gave him the answers to the exam to get back to the out of the facility and back to the prison, because the state gets federal funding based on success rates. And so if the kid is sticking around, even if he's not better and not competent and not improving on his quality of life, they lose funding if they don't clear him out. So, I mean, you involve government, and then the government makes it more of a problem, but I don't know what the solution is other than, I did appreciate, I interviewed a candidate last week who said, he'd like to see industrial hemp and in-state cultivation of marijuana and use that money directly to pay for mental health in the state of Georgia.
Right.
So.
That's interesting. I mean, at least it's a plan.
Right? I mean, if we're not going to fix the road, we might as well fix the people. But, I mean, at least do it.
I don't know. This has been the whole thing is very frustrating. And I'm sure there are people who listen to this that have been dealing with this for a lot longer than I have. And they can probably tell horror stories about it. But this is just like every step. And because we've had private conversations about this, that it's just utter ridiculousness every time I turn around. In dealing with all of this.
I think what's almost shocking, because I haven't dealt with anything on the level that you and your family have, but like you said, you've shared it with Jonathan and I specifically, and, you think you found a solution, and then all of a sudden you're blindsided by some red tape or some, something that's going on with the state or with your insurance or something where you think you found an avenue, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, just kidding, you can't go that way. And you're already halfway down that path. And so I don't know how you fix something like that.
Yeah, that happened last in the spring. We were all set for Laurel Heights, which was a residential facility, and we get in there and they're like, oh yeah, insurance. Well, it's good. We had this all squared away before we got here. What happened? The most recent thing that's happened, we picked him up last week. He did a few days at Peachford, and they wanted to transfer him to another residential facility, basically as to hold him until we could get him to Colorado, because the doctors don't feel that it's safe for him home. Insurance denied it. Insurance spoke directly with the doctor at Peachford. They spoke with all three of his therapists, who all said you do not need to release him until you don't need to send him home. They sent him home.
How much are facilities like what you're talking about here in state and out of state? I mean, how much can that run a family?
The one in Colorado is $7,000 a month.
Wow.
And I did the math on it. They say that it's typically 6 to 9 months. I always figure worst case stuff on that. So at 9 months, it's about $61,000, which in my mind, if you're a guy that gets up and goes to work, right, you can't afford that. And I don't mean you get up and go to work and make $15 an hour or whatever. I don't care if you make $400,000 a year. Your lifestyle, would be representative of that kind of a salary. You likely don't have $60,000 laid out or $7,000 a month. Throw at something like that. And that's pretty common. That's that kind of money. I've seen one place was $1,700.
Wow.
I think it was $1,700 a week was one of the least expensive ones I've seen.
So what is the expected or hopeful timeline of going this route you're going with the state representative and the governor and the insurance commissioner?
We've gone ahead and put my son on the waiting list for this treatment facility in Colorado, which I keep saying facility, but it's really not. It's a home. He goes and lives in a house with trained therapists, right? And they take on the role of mom and dad in this house for 6 to 9 months. And then everyone that he would come in contact with throughout his daily life has been trained to deal with rad kids. It's really neat. But it's December is when the next available slot is out there. So I've got till then. And I sat down with Micah Gravely this morning, and he was floored, because it's one of the things that we don't, if you look at my Facebook, I don't put things like that out on there. And so he was a little shocked. He was surprised at the kind of things that we've been dealing with for the last few years out of it. And I got a text late this afternoon that he had a conversation with some other people, and they were going to just kind of team up and hit it. And so I'll know, he did tell me, don't expect anything fast. It is government. And I was like, oh.
You don't say.
So right. So I mean, I'll keep it updated as we know, but it could be something as simple as I may have to go sit in and sit down with the governor and tell him about everything, just tell the story. It could also be that Micah relays the story so well they sign off on it immediately. Right. Just never know.
Well, and Micah's very well respected. He has a good working relationship with the people you're talking about, so hopefully that will work to your advantage as well.
One of the other things that in dealing with my kid and all of this that's been interesting, as far as just government being a general pain in the ass, is the Paulding County school system. I mentioned that we put him in a residential facility late last spring. So we withdrew him from school and put him in there, and he went to school there. They have a school on campus. It's part of the Atlanta city public school system. I go back to re-put him into Paulding County school, and we make an appointment, and the first appointment that was available for us was not until a few days after school had started, which was fine. They're busy. I get it. But so I called, and I was like, hey, we yanked him out last year, right at the end of the school year, and he's got 5 brothers and sisters that are currently enrolled in the Paulding County school system. Do I need to bring all of this paperwork that y'all just emailed me and told me I need, or do you still have it all available from 3 months ago? And the lady that I was talking to was like, no, you're fine, just come on up here. So I take off work, and I go and I walk in the door, and I don't get past the damn gatekeeper. This lady was like, do you have a power bill that shows where you live? And I was like, no. I said, I talked to somebody on the phone. They said I wouldn't have to worry about it. And she's like, not gonna happen today. Sent me out the door. So we had to make another appointment. That was on a Monday. Following Wednesday, my appointment is for 8:30. I get there at 8 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, I'm still sitting in the front. The 2 people that had appointments had not been called back, but several walk-ins had gone. And by 9, I was so irritated. I just walked back there, and the first person that made eye contact with me, I was like, look, I'm not trying to be a pain in the ass, and I understand y'all are busy. I said, but the 2 folks that have an appointment are still sitting up front, and walk-ins have come back, and that's crap. And the lady's like, I'm sorry, the woman in front of you. And I was like, no, she was not in front of me, but whatever. She had some issues. I'm like, yeah, I heard them. We all did. So, but it's still, man, it was another 20 minutes or so after that before they got us back there. And, of course, I had all my paperwork in order now because I wouldn't, make sure I had my power bill, my water bill, everything. But it was just, right. I just thought the whole thing was ridiculous in that I get if it's one kid coming in here, but we're talking about a kid who's got siblings that are like in the school system right now.
And he was previously a student.
Right, his student ID was still active.
Right.
So I don't know. It was ridiculous, and I just kind of. I think on that day, I was feeling how it felt like everything that I was involved with that was touching government. It was just the ineptness of government shining through all of it, and it really irritated.
So how long did it take after you got back there?
47 minutes.
I guess that's...
Which I still think was like ridiculously long, but whatever.
Such is life.
Right.
So maybe he'll get paired with this little girl who is making the headlines around the country because she's 3 and she has an IQ of 171.
Right.
Yes.
171?
171. And she says by the age of 2, she was able to remember and recite the alphabet. And, obviously she's having a hard time in school because she already knows everything. But it's just, I can't even imagine. Most people, adults, is 100 is the average. I mean,
right? Yeah.
So 171.
171. Wow! I just found the article. I'm reading it here. It looks like
you have to wonder. Like, I would love for somebody to chronicle her over the next 15 years as she becomes an adult. And I mean, like, how high can your IQ go? Is she topped out at 3? Like, is this as good as it's gonna?
Yeah, I mean that's in the way that IQ is measured. It is kind of done that way. It's not about it's not measured by what you know.
Right.
It's your capacity to learn and understand.
Right. So I mean, is she is this it, or will she improve?
I don't know that her score will improve, but I bet. I mean, she's obviously going to learn things that are so far outside of age appropriateness for her that's man, I can't imagine. I don't know what I would do if one of my kids was like that. I would feel. I mean, I've got one kid that's crazy smart. I don't know what his IQ is, but he'll go read up, for 3 weeks about nuclear fusion or something, and then want to come have a conversation with me about it. And I'm all like, you gotta have to hold on, man, because I know you've been reading about this and studying on it for a while, and I haven't. So if you want to have an intelligent conversation about it, you'll have to give me 3 weeks. But I don't know, man, that'd be hard to. I wonder, at what point, from a parental perspective, they would start to feel inadequate.
Probably now.
Yeah, because one of the things, and I think I can probably speak to this pretty well because I'm a parent with a crap load of kids, but it's your job to teach them.
Whoa. Okay, I have Shady and Stella, and it is my job to teach them and make sure that they get the most out of life and that they are decent members in society, because I don't want them to be the dogs that people are complaining about when we're in public.
My dogs are the dogs that people complain about in public.
So that kind of leads me to my next topic that I wanted to talk about, because it's not really political, but you always see people complaining about animal owners, and now we've moved from service animals to therapy animals. There's a distinction. So Southwest Airlines is going to allow miniature horses as service animals on their planes.
No way.
Yes way. And starting in September. And first of all, I was unaware that I know that horses are therapeutic, but I was unaware that they are accepted as psychiatric support animals and trained service animals. I didn't know that was... and it allows you to have them as an emotional support animal. That was the term I was looking for, because psychiatric support animals are protected under federal law. Emotional support animals are not, which I'm sure we're moving to that direction. But I'm just blown away that we're going to allow a horse. I can't imagine the problems that having a horse on a plane is going to cause. Where are they going to sit?
Right. Man, I know this is going to shock you, but I have some pretty strong opinions about service animals.
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Therapeutic animals. Look, if you're blind, you can walk around wherever you want with a dog. I'm down with that.
Well, how kind of you to give your consent for a blind person to be led.
No, man, I see these dudes walking around in Academy, right? And they've got like a Chihuahua, right? And it's got a vest and it's talking about it's a service animal. And you're like, and he's walking around petting it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, the dog helps with my PTSD or whatever." And I'm like, "Man, get a therapist. Like, keep your Chihuahua at home because that's crap."
So, what breeds do you feel like are capable of being service animals?
It's not so much what are or not capable of being service animals. I think it's more about what really qualifies as you need the constant support of an animal.
Right.
Right? Like if your PTSD is so bad that you can't leave your house and go buy some running shorts at Academy, you probably, without your dog, you should probably check in somewhere.
Where are they going to check in? Because our state's mental health is crap.
That's true, it is.
Maybe this is the anti-government approach to our state's lacking mental health facilities. I
mean, most of the guys I know that suffer from PTSD, they work it out pretty well with weed. So.
Right. Which is also part of our mechanism of funding mental health. So again, that is a help. But I mean, I know what you're getting at. I mean, sometimes there's just in the city of Brooklyn, I think a couple weeks ago, they had to have a special called meeting because for some odd reason, the city of Brooklyn owns a rental property and they have a lease that allows, they don't allow any animals of any kind. And then this person's like, yeah, I want to get an emotional support animal. So the city had to have an emergency meeting because it's cheaper to just allow this person to alter the lease and get the animal than it is to get sued in court for, pain and suffering and blah, blah, blah. But, it's going to be a labradoodle. I mean...
though, those are supposed to be smart dogs.
They don't shed either, but they're expensive. I mean, but they are very smart. But getting back to the horse on the plane, I understand it's a miniature horse, but at some point, I just want private entities to draw the line. I mean,
right.
Say enough is enough.
No, sir, you can't bring your damn horse
if you keep it
on the plane.
Yeah, if you keep it in a barn when it's at home, you can't bring it on the plane. And what happens if this horse has to use the restroom?
I thought about that as soon as you said it.
Because the reason that I asked that is because there was someone who, I think she's a mutual friend of ours. She was flying to DC the other day, and she was talking about how someone's service dog had an accident at the airport, and it disrupted all the flyers at 3 gates in the area. And I'm thinking, this is a horse. This isn't like a lab puppy in training or something. This is a horse. I'm very concerned.
I wonder if they're required to have an insurance policy because horses kick.
So I don't see anything in the article, but that doesn't mean anything. But you bring up a good point because, I mean, if you want to bring oxygen on a plane, you have to sign all kinds of release paperwork and notify them ahead of time. And so I can't imagine you can't just show up on the day of the flight and be like, yeah, I got my horse.
I can just imagine the guys at the TSA like, what the hell is that? This is my pony.
I mean, for that aspect, to give TSA a hard time, it would be a blast to bring through a donkey and a horse and a bird. I mean, yes, my horse...
7,000 3-year-old girls.
Right, my horse is not going to be going through that scanner. We're going to opt out, and you're going to need to pat it down. I mean, I can totally...
Glove up.
I could appreciate it from that perspective. And I can appreciate the type of support that these animals provide people. I do not deny that animals are therapeutic and connect with people. They are wonderful. They're better than humans. But they don't...
Right. Now, yeah, my kids, some of them have participated. It's called hippotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why? You know what hippopotamus means?
Why don't you share with the group?
Water horse in Greek.
Really?
Yeah, which is where hippotherapy comes from.
Well, So I'm opposed. I mean, it's fitting for Southwest because the way they board you is like you're a bunch of livestock anyway. But so I mean, I guess get in line. But I the only part about this I enjoy is what it will do for the TSA, and I'd love to see the gate check person's face when they're like, "Yeah, I'm here with my horse."
It does say that a kid was bit.
A bit was bit?
A child was bitten on a Southwest Airlines flight earlier this year.
By a horse or a dog?
It was a dog. But yeah, so it says that it will limit emotional support animals to one dog or cat per person with a doctor's note required. There is, however, a somewhat bewildering caveat. While unusual or exotic animals are no longer permitted as trained service animals, miniature horses are still allowed.
Jeez.
They've got pictures of a horse on the plane. Wow.
We're going to post those on the Facebook page for everyone to see.
Yeah, we are.
And if you are somewhere where you see a horse on a plane, snap a picture and post it on our page so we can share it. So,
all right.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up. I saw this article and it made me think about how entrenched we are in politics and how, it affects so much of our lives, like with what you're going through with your kid. But there's an article going around that says 1 in 7 Americans lose sleep at night because of politics, and that 16% of people making $75,000 or more stress about it, while only 7% of people making less than $30,000 a year do. So my question for you is, have you ever lost sleep over politics? Other than when you were running yourself?
I'm not sure that I lost sleep then. But no, I don't. I lose sleep for other reasons. Mm-hmm. Obviously worried about my kids or something. But even then, I tend to, I'm just one of those people that I can, and by one of those people, I mean I'm a man, where I can just turn it off, and that's it. And my wife hates me for it, because I can be like, well, it's time for bed now. And I will go get in bed, and I will lay down, and I will go to sleep. And that's it.
Discussion
my head
is
hits
over.
the pillow, and I'm out. Right? And my wife, she's one of those that lays there and stares at the ceiling for half an hour and all of that. But nope. I could decide right here on this desk that it's time to go to sleep, and I'd be snoring in 40 seconds.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is when I can't fall asleep because I think about too many things that I have to do. But, I think definitely in this age, it says baby boomers are more likely to lose sleep over politics than other age groups. And I just wonder how much of that is conflated with actual stress about maybe things like Social Security or retirement that maybe they assume are political, but maybe aren't exactly 100% solely, it's not like they keep staying up at night over whether or not the House is going to go to the Democrats,
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I know my mother's that age. My father-in-law is too. He's retiring at the end of the year. My mother has switched over to part-time work now, and it was a thing they had to think about. There was some planning. So with a lot of I didn't realize that there was so much planning involved in when you decide to retire. I thought you just were you know what, I'm out. We're done. We're going to go, enjoy the next however long you got. But no, man, they're all, I got to keep working so I can pay for this part of my Medicaid. That apparently there's several parts to Medicaid. I always thought, once you were old, we picked a tab for it, and that was kind of one of those things that we did as a country. But I was wrong. So I could see how somebody could lose sleep over that, and call that politics.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the time of recording, it is almost time to go to sleep, and I won't be sleeping or worried about this as I'm trying to go to sleep. But the good news is we made it through the episode. We survived. We did it. We talked about legitimate stuff, and we were unsupervised.
Right?
Yay, us! So do you have any closing thoughts?
Oh, what do I have? I don't, because I've been so busy with work. I haven't had a chance to pay attention to politics. I haven't thought on it.
I have no idea what's going on in the world, so I have no thoughts at this time.
Right? Well, you know what? There is one thing that I know about that's happening in the world in Bogota, Colombia. We didn't talk about that.
What's that?
That the health officials in Colombia have made a recommendation that due to an intense heat wave that is grabbed a hold of the country, that the residents need to take a break from sex.
How will that cut down on the heat wave?
Well, no, it'll help them stay cool because I guess it's probably age dependent, but it's probably moderate to extreme physical activity. And this article here says that it can put as much strain on the heart as walking up 2 flights of stairs.
2 flights of stairs.
2 flights of stairs.
We've done really well this episode, and before we take this down the tank, or 1, there's not really much I can follow up with regard to a topic, and 2, there are very few things I can comment without making some sort of assertion, or so I think it's best if we just say goodbye.
You're done? No thoughts? No comments?
I'm tapping out. What's funny is that the topic was my idea, and I'm at a loss for words, so I think it's just... I got nothing. Thank you for your closing thoughts. Everyone stay cool.
Later.